Welcome everyone, happy spring, and thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Suzanne Pichetti Johnson. I am the program manager for Avenues to Wellness. We are a program of the Frank R. Howard Foundation. So we really appreciate the foundation sponsoring this 101th talk tonight.
Oh, how great is that?
Yes, it is great. And when questions come up, if you could keep them very brief so we have time for everyone, and we only have so much time tonight. And now, I am very happy to introduce our guest speaker, Wolfgang Ronnefeldt. Wolfgang has been practicing body-based psychotherapy for over 30 years. He was employed by the courts to teach anger management classes, and for the last 25 years, he's been leading dream groups and overnight dream workshops. And I learned tonight that 50 years ago, he was teaching German and German literature as a professor in Germany. So he is...
In Pennsylvania.
Oh, in Pennsylvania!
Yes, in Lancaster County.
I didn't know that. I assumed it was in Germany.
No.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Well, it's such a pleasure to be here and talk about dreams because it's so fascinating. And first of all, I'd like to thank the Howard Foundation for inviting us here and taking care of the wellness of the community with lectures and also the hospital. And I'd like to thank Suzanne for organizing this and being so meticulous in emails and organizing every part, and there's drinks and there's lifts and there's so many details that have to be taken care of for this small event. So thank you. And Suzanne is also, she loves beauty and makes beauty. And she had this beautiful store in town where exquisite art was displayed and beautifully, and also the hospital is beautifully decorated, partially because of you. Thank you for creating beauty. So furthermore, today is the equinox, and so spring is starting, or has already started, but here it is. And maybe you can just think about some things that excite you about spring, and just think about it. What excites you? What brings beauty, what brings inspiration for you. Just think about it and then maybe tell me a little bit about it. So, yes.
I get joy from watching plants emerge from seeds that I just planted like 3 or 4 days ago. I just can't believe it. So I get joy out of that.
And your name?
I'm a plant. I'm his wife. She's a plant.
So, so, as you are saying that, what emotion is present?
Excitement. It's exciting.
And furthermore, where do you notice that in your body? Yes.
In my upper chest and moving into the throat.
Okay, so that's very important with any kind of dream work. As you're having a dream or telling a dream, what emotions are present and where do you feel it in your body? So it's actually the three part. The mind obviously is very important to get your plot together and your association. Then the emotions, and also where in your body is it? Because that's also a very important key. So, other inspirations about spring? Rosamond.
Are green.
Ah. And as you're saying that, what do you notice?
Very similar to what Karen said. Upper chest, just joy.
Joy and expansiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what about somebody else here? Yes.
Literally a new beginning.
A new beginning. And how do you experience that?
Your heart swells, your head feels just ecstatic because things are beginning where you may have felt stuck. So spring represents a new beginning.
Yeah.
In a very literal sense to me.
Okay. And as you're saying that, what emotion is present?
Oh, happiness. And joy.
Happiness. And where is that where does it live in your body?
It starts right in the heart and spreads from there.
Okay. Great.
But it starts in the heart.
Starts in the heart. So, that kind of awareness is a key to dream work. So first of all, you have to remember, you have to use your mind, and then what emotion and where in your body is it? Even though the body part is not so well known. I haven't read anything in Freud or Carl Jung versus where in your body do you feel the emotion. I don't remember anything reading it there. Dream awareness, it's so interesting. Here we are. And I am talking to or preaching to the dream choir. Or am I also the preacher who's preaching in the desert and nobody is there? Because in so many ways, in this society, dreams are not very well recognized or appreciated. So why is that? All humans dream, all mammals dream, and we spend a fair amount of time at night dreaming. So why is that not really so appreciated or worked with? And maybe you have some ideas.
Our culture doesn't value it.
Our culture, and why doesn't it value it so much?
Because it's empty and forgotten. It's forgotten how important it is.
It's it's part of forgotten, but it's also an aspect of our culture is kind of materialistic. It's kind of logical. There's a beginning, middle, and an end. There's a time sequence. Now, dreams are none of that. Time sequences jump around. And dreams work more in symbols and metaphors. And so it's not necessarily right, here it is, and dreams cannot really be taken literally too much. I mean, sometimes it's okay, here you need to do this and that, but it's the rarest case when that is happening. So you have to learn the language of dreams. And what is that language? That language is basically metaphors and symbols. And, of course, emotions and body sensations. So when you have a dream and you have the body sensation and you're kind of puzzled, what is it? Then hang out with the emotion and the body sensation. And just sort of like, staying with it, and maybe associations, or, and eventually something will come to you. And that's really another very important part. It teaches us to be intuitive. And to be intuitive. And how do you know when you have you have finally, or you're in your dream interpretation, you have it could be that, but there's no aha feeling or sense of, this is it, or the intuitive sense of, I'm onto something, then that's really the intuitive part is a teacher for dream interpretation. And that's something a society that likes to be logical or mental is not really so easily taken or valued. And it seems like I went to several dream conferences in San Francisco, and it was international, and there were 500 people there, and gosh, it was like they came from all over the place, and it felt like it was a cult. It's just sort of like, here we are. It's not like, professorial, and Freud wasn't talking and Jung wasn't talking. No, it was sort of like we are having a party here amongst us. And isn't this amazing? It blew my mind. It was like it had this quality. It's just us and we are doing it. And here it's just us and we are doing it here. So, there's also so many different ways of working with dreams. So that, we in the West have Freud. He wrote Interpretation of Dreams. When was that? 1904. So, we are just like 120 years with a dream interpretation, basically Western style. Then came Jung, and here we are. So it's relatively new compared to, let's say, some of the work in India, or like in the Near East. And I do have to tell you a story. So 25 years ago, I had a Sufi teacher, and he was Moroccan, and he invited us to come, and there were 3 of us, from another therapist from Tucson, and an architect from the Bay Area, and the 3 of us, we went to Morocco and we were invited there. So we came to this city in the North Tangier, and we were hosted by these wonderful Sufis. And they they dined us. and opulently. And even the dining was like there were maybe 6 courses, and I like to eat. And by the 3rd course, I didn't know how to continue. So you had to actually get instructions eating. But meanwhile, at the end of the dinner, the men would be invited to be in the living room and lie on the couches and take a nap. So I would say, this is a Sufi group and an ancient one for that. And I said, well, what about dream work? I said, this one teacher, we don't do this. And I couldn't believe a word. And so the next day, what about dream work? And don't you? And then it was a tradition from Muhammad, from the Prophet Muhammad. He started this wonderful, no. But anyway, at one point after this one meal, he said, yes, we do. Okay, so what happened was that the 3 of us from the West, we were telling our dreams, and they interpreted. And it was fascinating, because they all interpreted in terms of their traditional Sufi beliefs, and it was very enriching. And then they told us their dreams, and the three of us were sitting there and interpreting their dreams. And it was very different. But on the other hand, just the experience that you can do so many different things with dreams, so many schools, so many ways of interpreting, is just one way that is dream work is all about. There is no one way to do it. And of course, there's also the theory that the Jungians have Jungian dreams, and the Freudians have Freudian dreams, and the Wolfgangs, they might have dreams I like. So the dream director also adjusts the dreams in some ways of what the school is or what the interpretation is, or also where we come from. So this is totally fascinating. And the dream director, and I don't know who the dream director is. People say it's the subconscious, it's the psyche, it's the spirit. It's, you can have so many various interpretations. Where do the dreams actually come from? But, I just say it's the mystery that shows up in some ways. And I'm happy with that. But, you can also get more specific if you want to. And the mystery has a broad span of consciousness. So, talking about consciousness, the consciousness that we have right now has a certain broad span, and it's kind of has a certain limit. So then you can say meditation. When we are in meditation or prayer, the consciousness gets wider, and more things can happen, and more realizations or more deeper connections can happen. And I think, hypnosis is also different kinds of hypnosis. The consciousness gets also wider. And I think one of the most sensitive aspects of our being is the dream state. And a lot of things can happen. And that's the exciting thing. So it can be, actually a dream that is only about your healing. You have some illness, and in the dream there is a healing happening. That is a dream, that's a place where you don't really need to do a lot of interpretation. It's just being present. And a lot of dreams are just like that, just working with whatever is. So if there's an ailment or you need an guidance, that's just the experience of the dream itself. But a dream interpretation gets then, that's a language. And any language, you have to learn it. We learned how to speak, we learned how to walk, we learned how to move, Lisa, and can learn how to move more effectively with Feldenkrais. We learned math, we learned, maybe the computer, and so on. So these are various languages, if you want to express it like that, that we learned. And so it's the same thing with dreams. And it's not really that complicated. But you have to kind of hang in there for a little while, because it's the language of symbols and metaphors. So, like symbols. Okay, here we have, literally, we have flowers. So if that would happen in your dream, how would you work with that? What kind of ideas would you have here?
It's a symbol of spring.
The experience of what kind of experience?
It's a symbol of spring.
Okay, that's one way of the. It's symbol of spring. Yeah. What else?
Blooming?
Blooming. Yeah. So okay, then you just go right into blooming. What in myself or in the world is blooming, and then you go from there. And what else? Color. Yeah, and what colors and what do they do for you? Meanwhile, we have also specific flowers. How about this one?
Yellow rose.
The yellow rose. And yes, go speak to me about yellow roses.
It's an apology, yeah? You send yellow roses to apologize.
Apologize, or, what did I learn? Use, pink roses to girls, or young, or red roses for love, and pink roses, or yellow roses, an older elderly lady. That's what I learned. But
I didn't hear what you said.
so yellow, elderly ladies. So, that's wherever you come from, maybe not here, but, a rose is also a symbol of friendship. Texas? Okay. Yes, or, also love. And then we have another one, this one, lily. So what is that?
Memorial, death.
Is
It could be
Resurrection.
resurrection.
or, I must also confess here, I took a course at the University of Munich, and it was about the symbology in medieval paintings. So they have very specific assignments for flowers. And this one, of course, we all know is for the Virgin Mary. But she's also with a rose and peonies and, I don't know, these. So, those are, here we are just kind of playing around with symbols, we have a symbol, flowers, beautiful experience, but we also then move into various symbols and what they could mean. And then we can go with a zoom lens, like very personal. Well, what does it mean for me to have a yellow rose? Or what could that mean for our community or family, or, in a larger sense, so in a larger community sense. So with dream interpretation, I liked the zoom lens. Sometimes you need to go really close up and sometimes far to get, where is the meaning for it? What could be the meaning of it? So that's just, one tool, like, close up for me or not. What do you have? Some questions. I'm talking an awful lot here.
You mentioned scent.
Scent, yeah, man.
And I was just thinking that, and that just seemed kind of fascinating concept to me to think of scent in the realm of symbology, and I'm just sitting there thinking about it, and then all of a sudden I can smell that lily from here.
And what happens?
I think it depends on your relationship.
But you what happens to you when you smell that?
I love it. It reminds me of nature and all that stuff.
So it's expansive for you, and it makes you smile, and just to recognize it, that awareness is great. Do you have some other? Yes.
I have two-part question, very small. I understand, like, if you have a deep sleep, you don't dream because everything inside your head is in deep sleep. But what I've been experiencing lately, the events from my life, like 20 years, 15 years, 25, all of a sudden come into my dream and they're so vivid. And it's like as if I'm there experiencing them, but when I wake up, it's very hard for me to remember the whole thing, but I know I've experienced it, like certain events is coming back.
Okay, so what emotion is present right now?
Now?
Yeah, right as you're telling that.
Curious.
Curiosity, yeah.
Curiosity,
And what else?
wondering why all those old dreams are coming back.
Okay, so where does that question then come from?
Trying to justify the reason they happen.
Yeah, it's part of it. So it's more mental. You're thinking about it and you're trying to resolve that. So it's more of the mind. So what happens when the dreams happen and these old friends show up? What happens?
I wake up usually.
Yeah, you wake up. What emotion is present?
Confusion, sadness.
Confusion and sadness.
Yeah.
And what is this sadness about, my dear?
Oh boy, we're getting personal now.
Yeah, it's just us here, you know?
Yeah. Well, it has some things with my childhood, trying to justify why this, why that. I can't see. I don't remember anything of my childhood of 10 years and below. None. Zippo.
And so.
And then other dreams come to me, like when I was older, or was in college, or just some incidents. I'm just trying to, I think, remember things that I don't remember.
That's a gift. Even though it might be uncomfortable, but it's a gift. And it's a gift of, you can say, the dream director, your psyche, something wants to become whole, wants to be healed. So we can't go into the detail, but it's also really, I would consider that is a gift, and something wants to be whole, wants to be healed, and these friends from way, many years ago, yeah, that experience has something to tell me. So it's a gift.
Is it has to do like intuition too?
Yeah, of course, intuition, plays always a part in dream work. Please, John.
When you're telling the story about the Sufis and that experience, and then different interpretations of those dreams, right, from different perspectives,
Yeah.
then isn't the more important thing, so you have the interpretation versus that feeling you're talking about. So what's more important?
We can do all kinds of wonderful interpretations of a dream and be Jung and Freud himself. Very elegant ones, but the thing is, only the person, the dreamer, can tell whether it rings true. There's a certain sense of felt, oh, yeah, we are on the right track here. This rings true. There's a felt sense, an intuitive sense that tells you you're on the right track, or maybe it hits the dream, but that is only the dreamer himself, him or herself, can tell you whether that interpretation is right, or, feels okay. Right, you can't do yes or no there, because there's so many levels of it.
Does that answer your question?
Well, so the interpretation always goes back to what you're feeling about that interpretation.
Feeling, or also of body sense, like, when you have a feeling of something is just right, there's a felt sense in your body or in your being. Oh, yeah. And a little expansion, a felt sense. It's hard to explain this. But we all had that, yes.
Maybe explain how, like, if you have a group of people and someone's working on their dream, that you can go around the circle and someone would say, well, if it were my dream, this is what I think. Talk about
that. Let's then do, let me see. And then let's do a dream or so.
While he's doing that, I've done a fair amount of work with Wolfgang, and when I tell people about it, the stereotype is always this idea that, oh, he interprets your dreams and tells you what they mean, and it's like, it's actually quite the opposite. He's more of a facilitator of your interpretation of your dream. And so you verbalize your dream, it gets listened to, you get asked questions about it, and really what the dream interpretation is what is useful to you. What is this thing that happened in your dream? Like, what emotion is that causing for you? Where in your life are you experiencing this emotion? What can we do about it? And so my experience of working with him is that it's almost like a choose your own adventure with your dreams, in terms of how you find it to be helpful in navigating your life and your relationships and your emotions. And it's a unique way to look at that stuff, and rather than just be in my day-to-day and what happened, it's like, no, this is stuff that came up in my asleep hours, and I'm now using those as a lens on my life and my emotions and my relationships. And so I don't know if that is helpful, but that's been kind of my experience with how the dreams are helpful.
So it's like therapy, psychotherapy.
With your dreams as the medium.
Yeah, it could lead into psychotherapy, but it could also lead into, as the topics emerge, into deep conversations about our philosophical conversations about who we are and what our life is all about. And that part is really can be very fascinating and intriguing. Something shows up, and we use the zoom lens, and something in the dream shows up that really addresses an aspect of the whole society and also our deeper psyche. So it is, you never quite know where you're going to land with it, really. And that is part of the exciting part, the intrigue, but also can be very frustrating, like somebody tells you, I have no idea where even to go. So that's also part of it. It's a little bit of a mystery path. You don't really know exactly, but it always tends to be pretty interesting. So let's have a dream. And Peter.
Do your dream. We planned this. Okay. This is a dream I had on 2/24, which was just a little less than a month ago.
And if you remember what was happening then, that was just during the political, economic fallout when the whole federal government was going to be dismantled and all that kind of stuff was happening. So my partner and I had been talking about that all day, or for days actually. And so just before I went to bed, I asked my dream world for a dream. And
so just a moment here. This is very important because it's intention. Okay, I want a dream. So intention is very important navigating the dream world. So remembering the dream or this one, this intention here.
Yeah, the intention. Okay, it's not the first time I did an intention. I've done this before in the past. So my intention was, what is my next step in dealing with all this political and economic chaos? And then I went to sleep. And sometime during the night, the first thing that happened was I had an image of a woman that I used to work for, and it was just her face. And then it almost immediately changed from that image to the co-owner, and she was, when I worked for her, she owned a retreat center that I was working at in real life. And so the next part of the dream was the co-owner, who actually sold the property to her, then appears. And he tells me, I want you to build a wall down the middle of the kitchen. There was a community kitchen in this building, in this retreat center, that was used to prepare all the meals for all the guests. And this is a retreat center that's been going on for, like 50 years or something like that. And so it was my job as in the dream, which is my same job in real life that I worked for these people, which was I was the facility manager. And so I took care of all new building. I took care of taking care of any problem that went wrong. I had to rebuild it or do whatever. And so in the dream, I had that same role. And so when he tells me I've got to build this wall down the middle of the kitchen, I know, well, that's my job. I've got to do this building of this wall. And now the kitchen is not a very big kitchen, but it serves up to 150 people. So, but it's very compact. And we used to have mainly 2 cooks and then maybe 5 or 6 people that they call facilitators or servers. So in the dream, these same people are there. And one of them, who is a young man who worked for me in real life and worked in the dream world as well, doing construction things just like me. I'd tell him what to do and he would go do it. So in the dream, I get together with him along with his aunt who works there, who is the longest staff member at this property in real life. But so in the dream, all 3 of us get together to discuss where and how we're going to build this wall down the middle of the kitchen to separate the serving staff from the kitchen cooks. And there's no explanation given by either one of these owners of the property of why this needs to be done. It's just, we want a wall down the middle of the kitchen. So I'm there talking with the young man and his aunts, and I'm standing in this, actually in the actual kitchen, and this is very similar to the real kitchen in the dream. This dream there's doorways on either side of the kitchen that you can come in by. So I'm trying to figure out how are we going to divide up the kitchen so you can still get into both parts of the kitchen for everybody. So I pull out my tape measure and I go over to one of the doors to measure the distance so I can kind of get it equal down the middle of the entranceway to make it so that it's going to be very narrow. So anyway, I pull out my tape measure and it won't cooperate. First it gets caught on the woman's staff members on her apron. It gets wrapped around her apron strings. And I'm trying to yank it out and it won't come out. And then it gets caught on, I think, a shelf or something right next to me. 3 times it gets caught. It won't cooperate. It will not let me take a measurement. The tape measure. It's a metal tape measure, one of the kind that you pull out. And I believe that that's where the dream ended. It was just When the tape measure would not cooperate, then I woke up.
Okay, so thank you for telling the dream. Now, where do we go from here? Anybody?
What was the emotion when the tape measure would come out?
Okay.
Weren't meant to do it.
Did you hear that?
Yes, that the first thing that came to mind was I'm not supposed to do this, and I'm kind of confused as what's happening here. Why is this inanimate, supposedly, tape measure acting like it has a life or has some kind of decision-making ability in this dream? And it took 3 times for it not to cooperate before I realized, oh, I don't want to cooperate with this scenario. And then I woke up.
Right.
That's great. What else?
That it's out of your control.
Yeah, what other questions could you have here?
What's going on in your life? It's like this.
What's going on in my life like this?
Yeah, that's that's the question. You want to definitely ask at the end. How does the dream reflect anything in your personal life? Yeah. If you want to.
Yeah, it mirrors several real life situations that were going on in my life at the time. That I was being put in a position to do something and participate in something that I really didn't want to do. But I had been obligated to by my position, my work. So it's that conflict. Do you do something just because that's what your job is, quote? Or do you do what you choose to do, what you want to do? And those things were coming up at the same time. But there was also a major thing about what was going on in the world at that time with the political and economic situation that was happening. Well, how much of this is happening, and who knows what's going to happen? How much of this do I want to cooperate with? That was very prevalent. It's that time, and still is actually.
So that is, a really good way of approaching dreams. If we can go into all the fine detail, but we can say, what is the dream telling me? What is the message of the dream? So you don't need to go into all the fine detail of with the staff and where the wall is and the owner and all these things. You can go just, what is it actually telling me? So that's one way of approaching it, and that's definitely a mental way. The other way would also be, what are the most uncomfortable aspects of the dream? So, being told, for instance, to build this non-functional wall, a wall that would make the kitchen unfunctional, basically. So, what does that evoke in us? The most, maybe if there's a dinosaur or something, or anything in the dream. What is the most uncomfortable one? Because creating fear or anger or whatever those emotions are, because they have a lot of information in it. It's not necessarily the rose. No, it's the monster or somebody really disagreeable or whatever you have a charge. That's where a lot of information is in. So, what else can we do with this stream right now? Yes, Rosamond.
Well, I noticed the cooks and the staff being separated. That seems significant. If it were my dream, I would wonder what part that played in the scenario.
Mm-hmm. Separation, segregation, yeah. Lisa, you got something? No?
I do.
You do, please.
It doesn't seem like anything I've heard, but would you let me take two dreams? Short dreams?
Yeah, let's just
Sorry.
let's just finish with this one then.
Battery's gone out.
Oh,
of my
okay.
hearing
The
aids.
okay.
Hold on.
There was an intention originally.
Yes.
And I feel like we digressed from that a little bit because it seems like you're talking about using the intention of having dreams to find a solution in your life, and wasn't that what it was? And I think like I've been kind of thinking about that a little bit, like what solution oriented gift or idea I'd say from that dream did it actually give you an idea of
It did. I don't know if I should divulge that or if other people have something else. But in the dream, because it was a major conflict. It was like, I don't want to build this wall. This is stupid. This is not going to work. And so in the dream, the young man and his aunt were there because they're part of the staff people that would be separated from the cooks. And I wanted to get their input in the dream. You know, is this okay with you guys if we put this wall here? And so, because I didn't like the idea and I was trying to figure out some way not to do it in the dream. So in the dream, what I came up with was, all right, I'll just frame a wall, but don't put any sheetrock or anything on either side of it. So you can still see on either side, you can still talk on either side, you can even walk through the wall, but I don't want to comply totally, but I could still say, yeah, we framed a wall, we put a wall on the middle. And how that relates to what was going on in the world, economics, political things and all that, how do you not cooperate? To me it was like, how do I kind of comply but still not cooperate? And that's what the dream was telling me about the situation.
Yeah, it's just totally fascinating how, you know, how this dream can unfold so many aspects. So, you know, the dream intentions, but then we are all here, and what does the dream mean to us? You know, it also speaks to all of us in some way. So, you know, you can say, okay, the kitchen as a symbol. What kind of a symbol could the kitchen be?
Nourishment.
Yeah, no,
Something
go on.
everyone needs. It's universal.
Community.
Society.
Yes, society.
Yeah.
So,
Center of activity.
what?
Center of activity.
Center of activity. You know, I sometimes also sort of feel like, or I would say, it's also the heart of the community. The community is nourished, you know, like that. Okay, put a wall through the heart of the community. Yeah, so then we can use the zoom lens even further. Okay, where in our life do we have set walls? Set walls through our heart. Where in our life, where for ourselves, you know, where does that show up then? That's, you know, that's where I go, you know, if, you know, as a dream for me.
I'm just wondering, of the dreamer, what were your emotions other than sort of I mean, you kind of described what wouldn't be so unusual, that intellectually you're thinking, I don't want to do this, I don't want to put a wall in the middle of the kitchen, so it's not useful. But did you have emotions associated with what was going on?
Confliction.
Conflict.
It was confliction. It was really, that, simply put, I guess, it was confliction, being conflicted with, I'm in this job, I'm supposed to do this thing, including building walls. When I'm told to build a wall, I'm supposed to build a wall. But I don't want to build one, but it's not appropriate. And it's just like, so I'm caught in between, and I'm very conflicted about that. And that was the major emotion and feeling in the dream.
Did you feel defeated by that conflict? Or
Did I feel defeated?
Defeated or angry, or I'm just...
I felt I was being given a challenge to figure out some way to resist this thing and still comply in somewhat of a way to make it seem like I was complying to the people who were the decision makers. You've got the decision makers that are making decisions about this communal space that affects everybody else, not them, they're never in there anyway. The decision makers are not even there. But it affects everybody else. And so that was a very conflicting thing for me.
Okay, Peter, and where do you feel that sense of confliction in your body?
Well, I was still right centered in the middle of my heart, right down the middle of my body.
And that's very telling then.
Just like the wall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very telling.
I was thinking the kitchen is also the creative center, and that's actually what you ended up resolving in your mind was a creative way to comply and yet not comply.
Right.
So it's so interesting. So, as we are tossing and thinking and, also feeling this dream, different aspects show up. And that is the richness of a little community. When you have a dream, share it in the community or in a group or even a partner, just to work it out, to unfold it, and that is the charm. It's great to have a dream yourself. You can work it yourself, and you work it like you write it down. That's okay. Getting to the part of the memory of the part. How do we remember our dreams? Okay, have a piece of paper next to your bed and write things down as soon as possible. Some people are very clever and have a little device, and they speak it at night into it. And also, as you wake up, just take a little time. Don't rush right out. Just take a little time to toss it around and cultivate it in your mind. And also, here comes also a very important intention. You say at night, before you just hit the pillow, you say, I'd like to remember a dream. Some people dream all night, 5 dreams. Oh, okay, it's hard to sleep and get your rest. But, I say, I'd like to remember one dream clearly, please. Okay. And, some people, it's not a rabbit here. Sometimes I have a little cloth. I write down my dream intention. It's almost like a little ceremony. The psyche really listens to ceremony. So it's just a simple one. I write down, I like to remember my dream. I don't usually do that, but I'd like to have some guidance for this situation. Or I would like to talk to my sister who just died, or have a dream about her. This would be a dream intention. Okay? Then you can do this, or you can fold it and put it in your pillow as a dream intention. And I'd like you to try that. Put a dream intention, like remember your dream if you have trouble, and also, like for you, you can also ask, I'd like to know, why are my old friends showing up? Something like that. Sometimes we don't understand the first time of the dream or a series of dreams. Then you say, please, I need more instructions here, more guidance. It's, something is missing. We can do that. It's pliable, but we also need to pay attention. What else? Do you have some other questions? some repeat dreams. Yeah. So, yeah. Damn dream, you did say?
Oh, what?
The same damn dream?
No, I would have said worse. No, I
Repeat dreams are really important. You know, the psyche, the mystery, the dream director, whoever it is, the unconscious, saying, pay attention here. You didn't get this dream first time? Pay attention now. And if it's 5 times, and then really pay attention at the nuances. You know, is the dream getting more intense? Let's say it's a fear dream. Are there more difficult situations showing up where more fear is showing up? Or is it getting lighter? Adam, where are you going?
I'm dreaming of what the possibilities are.
Okay. Thank you for coming. So then the dream might move into nightmares. And they are really important to check, because the nightmares are saying, you pay attention now, and if you don't, there will be consequences in your day life. Whether it's a health issue, or relationship or issue, or work issue, or political or whatever issue. It is nightmares are really warning signs, so that things will not show up then in a physicality. Of course, there are the nightmares with trauma, and they are kind of a different animal. With a trauma, then you have a series of nightmares, and then you kind of look, is the situation improving, or is it getting worse? If it's improving, stay with it. If it's getting worse, then you might need to have some help there. I mean, all these people soldiers who have been in wars, traumas show up, and then there might be, it's like in a gramophone, the trauma dreams might just be again and again and again. Then you need some help. But in general, even though nightmares are so-called uncomfortable, when you don't like them and you hate them and so on, also greet them. Thank you for the warning system. Thank you for the warning system. So I can work on it and see what shows up. So does somebody have a nice nightmare? Yes.
I had when I was about 5 years old, I had a repeating nightmare that I would have. I had many times, 20, 30 times.
And would you like to share?
It was an image of a face that was kind of overwhelming me, and distorted and kind of taking over my being. It was very frightening, but I never did resolve it. It just stopped happening eventually.
Greg, as you're talking, what do you feel right now? What emotion is present?
Fear.
Fear. And where is that in your body?
In my chest.
Okay, so take a breath right into your chest right now. Deep breath. And everybody else, just send them some good energy. Keep breathing. Breath is number one help. So breath expands the consciousness, that is, the consciousness, the emotion, and expands it, and just also calms it. So, take a couple more breaths. So, this happened decades ago. Here it is again, in some way. So, of course, we could go into, what could this mean, and but it's also, it's a delicate issue of the heart, and the heart needs tenderness, compassion, nothing too, forceful. Tenderness. So, if it were my dream series, I would say, would ask the question like, what was overwhelming you at that time in your life? That might lead us to some place, but we don't know. So often you hear a dream and you think, oh my gosh, what is it? And then you have to you play around and go ask questions, and somehow you find a back door, and maybe an intuitive says, oh, I haven't thought about that, but let me ask this. So it's the intuition that is there. But one really very important part about dream work is that it schools your imagination. And that part is so important in our lives, that our imagination starts blooming and expanding, and is also a source of our creativity. And so that's why dream work can really be so helpful, not only in healing our psyche, our life, but inspiring us in bringing greater imagination into our life. And what else is there? What else is there? And in so many aspects of our life, we just sometimes get totally stuck pressed against the wall. We don't know what to do. And then what do? We ask our neighbor what to do. We get to the therapist. We get to our politicians. We can ask anybody, and maybe they have an answer. But the dream world can give you some guidance that is really very meaningful and lead you on an exciting path. Maybe not all the way, but the next step. Yes?
Would hypnosis unlock your dream world?
Yeah, there's different kinds of hypnosis, and hypnosis can help. Yeah, can be very helpful. Yeah. But also just kind of stay with it. Write down your dreams and sort of write down some associations, the emotions, where in your body. And, that's always the beginning. Our time. Oh my gosh. Do I have to say something very important still? But you have some questions here that some questions here. Yeah. Yeah, you got a halfway question. Yes, go for it.
What is your practice with dreaming? So I'm just curious. Do you have a notepad next to your bed and wake up every morning and write down your dreams?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not always disciplined, but this is the best way to have a notepad, or a little device where you can speak it in, or you tell your partner, I had this dream. Oh gosh, and for me that is, once I tell the dream, it tends to stick, but other people just really need to write it down or hear it, or in the middle of the night. And you really want to sleep, but here's this dream. And just to scribble on a notepad some of the sentences, and even if the sentences cross each other over and you can't hardly decipher it in the morning, you know, you still have something to hold on to, and then you can flesh it out. Some other things. Yes.
All right, mine is quite different.
Okay.
Some years ago, in 2008, as a matter of fact, I was diagnosed with colon cancer. And one night I had this dream that I have to tell you that I played the organ for a church for many years, and we had a church dog who came when we had anything to eat. She was there ready, you know. So I had this dream, and I was sitting in a chair in this house, and it was dark, some shadows. There was a little light coming in from the door, and this fox, somehow I knew it was a daddy fox, and he had all these kids with him, children. And I was sitting in that chair, and he was sending each one separately past me and out the door. And then Daddy came, and just like the church dog did, he came and put his nose right here between my knees, the way she always begged. And I looked at this fox and I said, "No, I'm not going to feed you anymore." And he left.
Okay, and so what emotions are there?
This is what I made out of it.
What emotions, feelings?
Right now?
Yeah, right now as you're telling, or as you remember, yeah.
It was a feeling of relief, because I immediately knew what that fox was telling me, that I had been fighting this too long and worrying about little things and not paying attention to my doctor so much. And after that, I had very little fear. It took the fear away from me.
Wow. Hallelujah.
Yeah, it was a good dream. It might have saved my life, I don't know, because I did some other things.
So right now, as you're telling us that, what feeling do you have? Sharing this with this group, what is your emotion?
Well, I'm liking the fact that might help somebody else here in a way to interpret their dreams. I don't know how, but
so there is, if I may say, the generosity of your heart to share. The generosity.
I'll tell you what I did.
No, what did you do?
I did the right things, and I had another mass that they were quite worried about and thought it had spread. And in my mind, I took out some very soft wool, pink wool, and I wrapped it around those two masses, and it was successful, and I had the other mass was benign, so it was no problem, and I came out beautifully.
Healthy. You know, this is so interesting. You know, this dream is a catalyzer. It shifted your attitude totally. So that's, that is a healing dream. And you can have the intention when you are, with a health situation. I want some answers, or I want some healing, and here it is, a total gift from I don't know what you can say, from the divine, from the mystery, from, your psyche, or, a larger part of ourselves that also functions. It's not, we are here in our body, but there's also, you can get into the whole spiritual, there's a higher consciousness, a soul, all of these words, but there's a higher part, a larger part of us that comes in and says, okay, I'll give you a dream. And you knew how to work with it.
Thought I did.
Well, that little foxy thing, huh? This is, Rosamunde.
You were talking about repeating dreams, and this is something that isn't exactly a repeating dream, but it's an image that has come a lot, and it's evolving. And I lost my husband very suddenly, and I was having dreams of cliffs, where I'm standing at the edge of a cliff. And more recently, I've had cliff dreams, but there's pathways down the cliff. There's people living down there. I had a house down off the cliff, and then I'm seeing a cliff, and there's, dwellings in the cliff. So it's repeating, but not exactly. It's evolving.
Mm-hmm.
It's evolving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's really good to pay attention then at the sequences. If you're just a dreamer, just work with it, over a period of time. That's where a great fruition comes. It's more like a movie. Like one dream is like a snapshot out of your psyche. So it can tell you a lot. But a sequence, if you have 10 dreams or 5 or whatever, you can see how things are progressing inside. And that's very useful to know.
What if you have a repeat dream and every time it's exactly the same? No evolving, nothing up, down, exactly the same.
Okay, so, it's good maybe to go into a dream group or work with somebody, but it's also like the same thing is just like, maybe draw it and maybe dream on, or in a different way. Like, okay, here's a dream, here are these monsters following me, and then you can do something like, okay, you little things. These little monsters, let me turn them into stuffed animals. So then they come and maybe they sit under my bed, but they're stuffed animals. Okay, so you can play around like this rather than making bigger teeth and sharper teeth. No. Shifting the dream in some form. I had somebody who had a dream, the same, it was a nightmare. And then we acted it out in a group. And then I said, well, shift it now. Shift the ending into something more benign. Okay, like, okay, with you, you said, I'm not going to feed that fox, even though you're so cute. No, I'm saying no. Just give it another touch to it. And this woman changed the ending, and she never had that dream again. So, acting out is great. Painting, artwork is great. Just singing it, whatever it is. Go in the woods, sing it. And, if there is scary stuff and you have to curse, go curse away. Just get it out. My dear wonderful people, our time is way over.